just wrapping things up with the players. It's gotten through a good number of guys this morning and still more to go. But just again, giving some finality to the season and making sure we wrap things up with the players and the coaching staff and front office and all that stuff. Those are kind of what these next couple of days are for. Not every player. There's some guys that are under contract and you have opportunity to talk to them in the coming months as they come back. But there's all ranges of guys you want to make sure you talk to on the final day. But everyone talks to the position coaches, coordinators, and then I've got a line at my door that's probably still up there. So
Jonah said he had a kind of a heart-to-heart and a reflective conversation with you about being your first draft pick and what you guys helped build early on in his career. What are your thoughts on Jonah?
Yeah, Jonah's competed really hard for us, and for 5 years now. And, there's a lot of appreciation on our end as coaches, for the job that he's done, moving from left tackle to right tackle. And so, again, I think he's served himself well and done an excellent job for us. And, look forward to seeing what the future holds. Again, with a lot of those guys that are on expiring contracts, it remains to be seen. Those are conversations that we'll undergo over the next month and a half. And that's what I communicated to him. But it is, when I get here, it's not my first draft pick. It's our organization's draft pick. But there is a collection of guys there, that group. If you look at the first 3 picks with Jonah and Drew and Jermaine and guys that were in some sense on a second deal, and I think that's good. That hit the character that we were looking for, and those guys have played significant roles for us over the last couple of years.
When you look at the season, you only had 16 giveaways, most of the fewest in the league, 76 penalties, fewest in the league. You gave yourself a chance.
Yeah.
Are you proud of that?
I am. I think that's a great starting point. It's, the penalties is something, sometimes it's out of your control, but there's a lot of things that you can control, and our guys do that. With some of the procedural stuff, we take a lot of pride in how we control that and how we use that. I think yesterday is reflective of that, doing a great job with our cadence and getting some free plays and some free first downs and getting ourselves out of a -1 situation and, defensively staying on sides. And so there's things you're proud of. The ball security stuff is something that we spend a lot of time and effort working on. And it's significant in terms of wins and losses. And it gives you a chance to be in the hunt and do all the things we want to do.
It's possible, obviously, that Tyler's not back. DJ's maybe not back. We'll know, maybe not. But those guys have been leaders for you.
Yeah.
Have you identified the next group of guys that can be leaders for you? Or do you let that happen organically?
Well, I think, I'm certainly not resigning to anybody walking out the door and not being here, but it certainly, as you look at the evolution of your team and the influx, you're going to have a lot of first, second year, third year players, and there's new leadership that has to emerge from that group. And that starts with me helping navigate that leadership. And I've talked to some of our veterans today on helping me with that and identifying guys. And I do think that's a big part of our future, is making sure that we have a great plan to develop the leadership and get the most out of those guys that are capable of that. And so that's a great question, and that is a big point of emphasis here in the next 6 months.
Joe said that he expects to have T back. Obviously, he's at the end of his contract, but the guys in the locker room expect that too. Do you expect to have T back?
I would. I mean, it's hard to imagine life without T. Higgins. And then again, those are all conversations that we'll continue to have upstairs. And I, T and I talked, and I have no information on that. Those are things that evolve. That's what the next 2 months are for. You get a chance to go in depth at the roster and survey the future. And again, I'm not trying to angle this any which way. That's what we do, and that's what Duke and all them have been working on endlessly. While we're in season, and then I get caught up to speed and we have those conversations. But T's a big part of what we're doing, and it'd be hard for him to imagine not being here.
Do you feel like there's some younger players that aren't necessarily holding everything back, but are saying, out of respect to the older players that have been leaders, I'm not really going to try to overstep my bounds here, but if somebody moves on, I'm ready to assume that next level?
There's always an element of that, guys trying to find their role and their place in the team. It's my job to help them navigate through that and come to the forefront. I can remember having conversations with Sam Hubbard, my first year here. He was a second year player at that point, and trying to help him navigate that. And so, again, we take great pride, and leadership can come from any corner of this locker room. It can be a starter, a non-starter, a veteran, a young player. And I think we need to continue to take great pride going forward and evaluating the right guys and bringing them to the forefront.
The defensive backs issue that we're already talking about getting together and doing stuff like that this offseason? Will that be more important maybe this offseason than in previous offseasons?
Yeah, I think it's just continuing to make the most out of our communication process. And again, there's youth in the secondary, those guys. And so it's good for them to take some initiative. And, we're expecting that group to continue to grow and improve. And the experience that they gain this year is invaluable. And that's part of playing this league is sometimes you're going to take your lumps a little bit and you're going to learn from that and grow. And there's not a player in our locker room that's a veteran player that didn't go through a similar process that some of those guys are going through right now. And now it's just how you handle that going forward. And again, just us as coaches, making sure that we're helping them improve the right way.
When you're in the meetings, extra meetings with these guys, and you're in communication, you get a lot of validation. It's like, I knew that the locker room was like this because of guys like you. I mean, the guys have something to say to you that kind of validates your thought.
Well, you get a lot of guys that have been elsewhere, and again, we got guys that have been tremendous places, and so they're never negatively speaking on other places they've been, but it's just positive is that it is a great environment that allows you to grow as a player and as a person. And I think that was probably my favorite comments from this morning is one of our free agent players that we had in here that just said they felt like they've grown as much as a person this year as any other place they've ever been. And that's important for getting this team where we want to be. It's not just about the on-field stuff. It's about what happens in the locker room and the weight room. And I think we've got a good group of guys that way.
We focus so much on which players will be back and which are leaving. Coaching staff-wise, do you anticipate any changes?
That remains to be seen. I think, guys, we have a tremendously talented coaching staff. And so I think opportunities are always going to be thrown at us. And I got to get up to speed on the rules on who I'd have to lose and who I wouldn't. But I think that stuff takes shape over the next couple of weeks, and we'll evaluate that as we go.
What impressed you most about how Lou handled what was a difficult year on defense, Zach?
It didn't change who he was, and maintained himself through that process. And it's challenging in all three phases. We face challenges this year, not just on defense. And so I think that's what I appreciate most about Lou and the coaching staff is, when we face adversity, it doesn't change who you are. And all of a sudden you start pointing the finger and becoming somebody that you're not when times are good. And so that's what I appreciate about Lou. And I think he did a great job of that this year.
This might be an impossible question to answer.
Well, I can't wait.
Is there anything you can do organizationally to try to plot a better way to try to keep Joe Burrow healthy through a full season other than knock on wood? Do you revisit the approach? Do you talk with Joe about different ways? How do you attack that or look at that as a thing?
Well, I mean, the calf thing happened on a scramble, non-contact, so it's I don't know that there's much you're going to do there to avoid, an injury that happens like that. And then the wrist, it's hard, fell on the wrist and somebody fell on top of them. That can happen on really anything. So you can look at every injury and say they're vastly different on how they occurred. And so again, it's part of our process is making sure we protect all of our players and we're not putting them in difficult positions. And that's part of our process with Joe. It's kind of the best answer I can give you there. It was an impossible question to answer, but I did my best.
He indicated that one of the things he might want to do differently is maybe the weeks leading up to camp, maybe not having his foot on the gas as much. But something that he's talked about with you about, or what his plan might look like as he gets ready to get ready for next season.
We've talked about a whole range of things, and so I won't get into everything that we talk about, but he's pretty thorough with his process.
How much confidence does that give you as he gets ready to come back from this? Is that the thoroughness in which he undertakes everything as he prepares?
Yeah, I have a ton of confidence in him.
Do you get to do anything extra as a staff, kind of with these extra weeks that you haven't had in previous years?
You just get a head start on everything, and so again, your vacation will come to an end as people are still playing games, which hasn't been the case for us in the past. And so there's an eagerness right now, I think, from all of us. Yeah, we need time off. You have to. We've been going full throttle for 6 months, and And even though the results aren't what we want, it wasn't because we didn't give our best effort, you know. And so now there's a as my father-in-law says, a reentry phase with your family, where now you get to go back in the house and change everything that your wife has established for the last 6 months. And so my wife looks forward to that. But you know, you get a chance to just refresh the emotional charge of time with your family, and then we'll get sooner time to come back in and then start to work on the scheme evaluation and the talent acquisition, you know. And so Duke and those guys are already full steam ahead with that part of it. And we look forward to, you know, we jump into the fray and they catch us up to speed, and we're more in the background observing. But I do have an eagerness to hit the next phase of the off season and get ready for that stuff and start to get prepared for when these guys come back in the building. And those are things that I do look forward to. But in the meantime, I'll take a chance to take a deep breath and spend some time with family.
Barring opportunities arising for different coaches on your staff, do you expect it to be intact?
I do. I like I said, I think we have a tremendous staff.
How tough would it be to watch the
Let me hit Kelsey and then I'll hit you, Ben.
To follow up on what you were just saying about your off season, like I know as coaches, so much of it is the same every year in terms of the process you get to go through free agency and the draft. How do you keep it fresh and not mundane, considering it's the same thing year after year?
For the coaching staff? It's a little bit of your process. You know, that's just, it does stay fresh because you're changing topics. There's really just a rhythm to NFL offseason that you follow. And there's not much changing that can take place because you get to February and you're getting ready for the guys you're going to see at the combine. You're getting ready for pro free agency. So you got to do all that evaluation. And then once free agency comes to an end, you really transition full time to your scheme evaluation, getting ready for your players and the draft. And so there's always things to keep it fresh and not stale because you're transitioning from one area of the offseason to the next. And then the players walk in the door and you get to focus on them for however many weeks we focus on them. And so, of course, there are ways, you know, I'm going into my 6th year here, that you got to look at the program as a whole and keep it fresh and put a different spin on things. Those are things that I'll evaluate over the course of the next couple of weeks and months. But from a coaching standpoint, it's kind of the calendar takes care of the freshness part of things. And once you finish with one thing, you get to move on to the next thing naturally.
what kind of impact do you think will have watching the wild card games and divisional games while season film for this year as opposed to not prepping for them for this season?
Hard for me to answer right now. Maybe as I watch them, something takes shape. You know, and so again, we've been fortunate to be in the position the last 2 years where you didn't get a chance to watch those games, but now we will, and maybe something will hit me as I watch them that stands out. Something that will help us in the future, but hard for me to give that answer right now.
You reflect on this year, every win's meaningful. The Jacksonville game, considering the stakes, considering how that game started, will that one stick with you with the response that you saw that night in those circumstances?
It's hard for me to. There's a lot of significant wins that we have, you know, for a lot of different reasons. And you know, our first win was on a Monday night in front of our home crowd. You know, to go on the road at San Francisco in a really difficult environment to a team that hadn't lost at home in a long time. Coming back against Minnesota, you know, and the Jacksonville game, like you mentioned. So there's, we had 9 of them. You know, they all stand out for different reasons, and you're always happy to get the win. At the end of the day, I'm happy we were 1-0 that day, and not so much what happened over the course of the day, and just okay, let's clean that up and put it behind us and move on to the next one. And I'm probably less reflective on each type of victory we had over the season than maybe people would think.
You showed confidence in Jake Browning his whole run. What did he show the rest of the NFL in these last 7 weeks?
That he belongs, you know, and that's nobody can say other than Jake with the utmost confidence that a backup that hasn't played in a meaningful NFL game that they belong. No one can state that. Now, Jake showed us all the intangibles. Jake showed us the work ethic. Jake showed us the preparation, that he was going to be ready when the moment calls. But until you're in that pocket and the lights are bright and the fans screaming at you, and you really don't know how a guy's going to react. And Jake reacted as we hoped, not as we'd known, just as we hoped. And so he made the most of his opportunity. And like I've said many times in these press conferences, you know, he gave this team confidence that we could continue to win and our goals were still in front of us. And Obviously, as a team, it didn't shake out the way we wanted, but he gave us that, and that's important.
You start your game plan according to the strengths of quarterbacks, and Joe kind of witnessed how you kind of morphed your offense for Jake. Is there anything that, as a group, I know you've met with Joe throughout the whole process, is there anything like, wow, what you're doing here with Jake, let's carry this over? Those things you're going to be looking at a little bit?
Of course, we look at the whole season and how do we have the best offense going forward. And again, there were things that we couldn't physically do with Joe that I think everybody understands early in the season. And a lot of these elements that have taken place over the last couple of weeks we were doing, against Buffalo and against San Francisco and in the games he was healthy. And so there is a happy medium there. There is also an overstating of how the offense changed, and so again, there's things that we do against certain opponents that you do regardless of who your quarterback is. And, so we look forward to evaluating the whole offense as a whole this offseason and figuring out what's going to be best for us as we move forward. And I think we've always been open to evolving, and we have evolved. And there's been some things that have been good for us in the past that maybe weren't good the next year, and vice versa. And we'll continue to assess that as we move forward.
When talking through kind of some of the offseason decisions, what's his input level like, and how is he when he's kind of delivering his opinions to you all on kind of what he would like or how he thinks it should be done?
Yeah, his input level's high. I think it's critical that when you have players you trust because of how they operate and how they see things and how they go through it, that input is critical, because we're up one floor above and we live in our little bubble, and we have things that we think are going well or not going well that we need to fix. And it's important to get opinions from key leadership on our team, and that's what not just today is for. I spend time over the course of the season and the off season meeting with different guys to make sure this, but Joe's up there at the top, in terms of an opinion that I want in about every area that we have. And I don't take it lightly when he says something or when he doesn't, when he doesn't have an opinion on something, but I think that communication is critical.
Zach, Sam told us he's going to have surgery this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Can you provide a little bit more information on when he's having surgery?
No, he's having surgery, and that's all I'll put to it.
Zach, with Jake doing what he did this year, going forward, you have more willingness to turn to him in situations if, let's just say, maybe it would be risky to start your quarterback because of an injury in a game or something like that. Would you feel more willingness to turn to Jake in situations where Joe was really battling through stuff now after this year?
Yeah, I think it's every situation is going to be specific to that situation, and when you feel like your starting quarterback gives you an opportunity and he's going to play in the game, those are hard decisions. And trust me, we went through it all the time we went through it, obviously. And I don't think it had much to do with Jake. It was more what had to do with Joe and the opportunity he gives us. And I can't really answer that question because hopefully we never deal with future injuries, but you never know what they're going to be and what it looks like. And so you can ask that question if God forbid the time ever comes.
How rewarding is it for a coach when, like Jake, he responds to what you're doing and he's carved out a different career path for himself than what he had before? How rewarding is that when you're a big part of that?
Well, I think Dan Pitcher is a big part of that, and so again, he's the one putting in the work with the backup quarterback. It's Brian and I have our meetings with all the quarterbacks as a whole, and we talk big picture. But my eyes are looking at Joe Burrow the whole time, as I'm communicating. Hey Joe, here's what we're doing, and it's Pitch's job as the quarterback coach, and he's done an outstanding job of this to prepare those other guys for their opportunities and to tie up all the loose ends when I walk out the room. And it might be, here's what he meant to say, here's something he didn't say that we need to cover. That's the role of a position coach, and Pitch does an exceptional job of that. So. I don't look at, I look at starting with Pitch put Jake in a position to be successful. Jake put Jake in a position to be successful. Brian does a great job with his 2 cents in that room. And then, I call the plays and try to piece it all together. But I think you got to give a lot of credit to Dan Pitcher on that.